Money Talks.
Money Talks.
Money Talks. Money Talks.
Hi, my name is Ebuka Emebinah, President CFA Society Nigeria. Join me and a host of other financial industry practitioners every Monday at 4:30 p.m. right here on Inspiration 92.3 FM for Money Talks with CFA Society Nigeria.
Money Talks, airing on this station every Monday at 4:30 p.m. from January 2023. Money Talks with CFA Society Nigeria. Let's talk about money.
If you've made a decision to aim for a long-term and successful finance career, taking the Chartered Financial Analyst CFA exam and studying the curriculum is an excellent way to ensure you have a strong knowledge base and top-notch skills. Are you ready to take the bold step to invest in yourself? CFA Society Nigeria is at your disposal, promoting the highest standards of investment practice in Nigeria. As an affiliate of CFA Institute, CFA Society Nigeria seeks to promote the highest standards of investment practice in Nigeria and to provide a vibrant community in which its members and other key players in the investment industry can interact and grow. When you have the CFA Charter, you're globally recognized. Take advantage today by writing the CFA exam and joining us at CFA Society Nigeria. For more information, visit us at cfasocietyng.org. CFA Society Nigeria, making finance a force for good.
Money Talks.
Money Talks.
Money Talks. Money Talks. Money Talks with CFA Society Nigeria. Let's talk about money. Hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on the program this evening. It's a Monday and it is the 20th of February 2023. This is Money Talks. Money Talks is brought to you by CFA Society Nigeria and is a financial literacy program. Today on the program, we're going to be discussing financial inclusion. That's what we're talking about today. Financial inclusion. And our guest on the program is Emebinah Ebuka. He's a financial economist. Ebuka has more than 15 years combined experience in audit, advisory, and management consulting. He's a CFA charter holder. He has worked on and advised on strategy, microfinance, and financial inclusion engagement in Nigeria and West Africa. In the course of his work, Ebuka has also implemented development advisory projects and widely traveled across Nigeria. He is currently lead strategy and governance financial services consultant with Financial Institutions Training Center FITC. Ebuka holds a Master of Public Administration MPA from Columbia University, where he specialized on central banking and financial markets. Ebuka also attended Syracuse University, New York, USA in 2014 as a Mandela Washington Fellow in the inaugural cohort instituted by President Obama. His first degree was in accounting from the University of Ado-Ekiti here in Nigeria. Ebuka, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time on the program this evening.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here.
So good to have you. So people, we are discussing financial inclusion this evening, and it excites me a whole lot because of what we're dealing with in Nigeria today with so much of our population being unbanked. There's one telephone line working in the studio via which you can ask your questions or make contributions. You can call 0817 313 6193. That's also the WhatsApp feedback channel for today. 0817 313 6193 is the number you can call. But Ebuka, before the phone calls and the WhatsApp messages start coming in, let's get a conversation started here. financial inclusion is a big cliche in Nigeria. You hear it almost everywhere, but not many people really know what's about. What is financial inclusion?
Thank you very much for your question. So financial inclusion, it literally means making financial services accessible to everyone. And when we talk about financial services, we mean not just the payment system or banking, as we would come to see. Financial inclusion certainly includes savings. For example, it includes insurance products, includes pension, which caters to people in old age. And certainly, I mentioned insurance, which helps you with the protection of assets. Whatever you own, whatever helps you in generating income and making your day-to-day living is an asset and needs to be protected. So financial inclusion means having access to insurance products. This it covers micro insurance, it covers micro pensions, and all the like. It's really broad. And so, why is financial inclusion important? It's important because over time you have the United Nations SDGs, and you find out that in order to achieve that, in order to have healthcare, you need to pay for it. In order to have food, you need to pay for it. And so it's a means of access. Without having a bank account, for example, you don't have that access, that basic access. And that's really what we come to understand by financial inclusion. So over time, the Global Development Agenda, with a wide range of actors, the United Nations, the World Bank, and in Nigeria, our central bank, we've come to recognize financial inclusion as an enabler of everything. So when you talk about the SDGs, the final one talks about partnership for the goals. So there's a need to have a collaborative approach and look at everything holistically. And it's triggered really by the access to financial services.
So someone listening out there, especially somebody who will think, okay, they're not talking about me. I want you to explain, to be financially included, if I put it that way now, are there benefits that somebody can derive from being financially included? Because you've mentioned access to financial services right now. So what benefits lie there for somebody who should be financially included?
So many benefits. So I'll look at it from the micro and the macro level. At the micro level, for example, one needs to be financially included. So when we talk about financial exclusion, I'll look at it from a broad perspective again. Nigeria has a target that by 2024, at least 95% of the population should be financially included. That means they should have access to at least a bank account. And then so many other benefits can flow from that. So what that means is, I'll give an example from a micro level again. During COVID, you find out that in developed countries who had fiscal space, there was an approach, there was a need to actually give resources to businesses, to individuals in order to survive. So emphasis on having fiscal space. So if we wanted to take an action like that, the best way of doing that would be through a bank account. Yes.
Yeah.
So I happened to be in the US during COVID, and even for students who had a bank account and were Americans, they were entitled to something from government. So that's why it's really important to have a bank account, because it's a way of being included, having a say. Yeah.
So if that is the case, then what is the barrier to this financial inclusion, especially here in Nigeria? You see what's going on now with the Naira redesign policy and the cashless policy of the government. People are not able to do financial transactions. You go to buy something and you say, I want to transfer money. The person said, no, I don't get account. I know they do all those in a transfer. So why are people not embracing financial inclusion? What are the barriers to being financially included?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and it's pertinent. It's pertinent in our times now. So definitely some of the questions or the reasons are micro, and some are macro, some are systemic. It's a combination of factors. So I'll talk about some of them. First of all, one could say, I don't have a job, therefore why should I have a bank account? Or I'm self-employed, I'm a trader, I deal in cash, so why should I have a bank account? And you find out that these are some of the reasons why we need to, as a country, mobilize domestic savings. So I'm going to get to that, but looking at it again from the micro level, another reason is the cost of financial services. So you make a transaction, you have internet charges, you have the VAT on the transaction, you have the session charge, so all those charges kind of contribute to the fact that it's a cost, and but then we look at it from a demand and supply and a purely economic perspective, and would say that when the cost of an item is high, then it's more likely to be a supply problem. So what it means is there's a demand from the populace to actually want to have an account. People want to be financially included. I don't see a reason why. I've not met anyone who has said, oh, I don't want to open a bank account because I don't want to. So people want to be financially included. But again, it's a combination of different factors, individual circumstances. I talked about the cost. So looking at that, there would certainly, it means that there's an opportunity for financial service providers to particularly in the current circumstance, to maybe streamline the costs, for example, and then ensure that the quality of service is also there. So taking all of that into consideration, why is it that people are still financially excluded? I've listed the individual circumstance. People say, oh, I don't have a job and therefore I don't need to, which is not absolutely correct, because there's still a lot of benefits.
And sometimes people don't trust the banks. They said, if I take my money there, maybe when I want to use it now, I can't transfer the money. Like what you see with banking infrastructure, these days people do transfers. Sometimes it takes days for it to get there, or people get money transferred from their account. They get debited, the merchant doesn't get value. There are trust issues, don't you think, maybe?
Well, I wouldn't call them trust issues. We would say that they are systemic issues, infrastructure issues. And certainly it means that there's an opportunity. Whenever there's a challenge, then there's an opportunity. So, for example, in the current circumstances we find ourselves, there's certainly an opportunity for touch and go payment systems. There's an opportunity for blockchain, for example, and we've seen increased volume of transactions for USSD. We've seen increased volume of transactions on POS machines, and that's certainly the way to go. During COVID, no one really wanted to get into physical contact with someone else. People didn't want to exchange cash. So why is it that now we are becoming so, so there's an opportunity. There's certainly also room for changes in behavioral changes, so some form of financial literacy campaigns. But essentially, the Nigerian financial system, the role of the CBN, which they have continuously and actively played alongside the NDIC, is to maintain a strong system, and they've done that successfully. To buttress this point, if you have transactions outside the banking system, you actually have a higher risk of losing your funds than if you have your funds in the system. So the NDIC actually insures deposits, up to certain limits, and that's a factor that should be taken into consideration in deciding to actually use the banking system rather than being unbanked.
Thank you so much, and we'll go to the phone lines right now. Remember, you can reach us here on Money Talks. Money Talks is brought to you by CFA Society Nigeria, and is a financial literacy program. Today we're talking about financial inclusion, and my guest on the program is Ebuka Emebinah. Ebuka Emebinah is the team lead, strategy and governance in Financial Institutions Training Center, FITC. So you can call us now. Should you have questions about being financially included, you're having problems with it, you're facing some barriers, opening accounts in the bank, or why you don't want to take your money to the bank, why you don't use banking or financial services, you can call us now. The number to call, 0817 313 6193. That's the number you can call here in the studio. 0817 313 6193. You can also send WhatsApp messages to that number to join the conversation right here. Any question you have about financial inclusion, you can ask our guest, from savings account to current account, to why you don't want to go to the bank, or why you have phobia for banking services or financial inclusion. We will be ready to take those questions and provide answers while Ebuka is still here in the studio with us. One more time, 0817 313 6193. That's the number to call. So Ebuka, let's go now that we've identified some barriers. How do you think, or in what ways would you think that these barriers can be overcome towards being financially included?
Yes, so I must emphasize that as a result of work done over time by the authorities in Nigeria, there's been the percentage financially excluded has consistently diminished. And I'll take that. Sometime in 2014, the percentage of financially included was about 44%, and by 2020, it's as high as 64%. So that shows some significant growth. And the target by the authorities, the central bank, is to achieve at least 95% by 2024. So there's progress, and there's room for more. There's greater room for progress. Currently, in terms of Nigerians with a bank account, you're looking at about 55 million bank accounts. It's still a scratch of our adult population, because oftentimes you look at it from an adult population perspective, which is above 15 years. So there's significant room for improvement, and some of it is what we are seeing at the moment. I believe, I'm strongly optimistic that 6 months down the line, we would have significantly made a lot of progress in being financially included. And there are a lot of benefits to this. When you look at developed economies, a large part of development comes from financial intermediation from banks, and banks will be able to achieve financial intermediation to the extent that they are able to have to mobilize deposits. And so the deposits in the banks in the form of savings is what translates to investments, for SMEs. And so there's certainly a lot of opportunities for us to be able to mobilize domestic resources, not just relying on foreign capital flows, but rather being able to mobilize domestic resources. We've done that significantly in pensions, but we can do that in the banking sector by banking the unbanked, getting everyone in. And looking at this, there's a lot of factors involved, so we've talked about poverty, the fact that people say I don't have a job. There's also the gender dynamics involved in this. So when people talk about financial inclusion, you actually need to some of the steps to take would be looking at gender disaggregated data to find out why are men behaving this way, why are the female folk behaving this way. So understanding human behavior is a significant part of it, and then with that you can actually tailor solutions that fit those that fit them as people.
So someone will be asking there, but we don't have banks in many places in Nigeria. That's why a larger percentage of the population are still unbanked. So people cannot access banks. Like in the hinterlands, with what is going on now, people have to travel hours, maybe to the cities, to the state capitals, to be able to access banks. And where these banks are available, you see that they'll tell you network issues and all of that. Don't you think that these are some of the... How do we come out of these kind of barriers?
Yes, definitely. Also a very
and the fact that people need to be literate as well, to be able to enjoy financial inclusions. They have to be financially literate to partake in all of these financial system. How can individuals improve their knowledge?
Yeah, so you actually don't have to be literate in terms of reading.
They don't have to study finance.
No, you don't have to. You really don't have to. Financial service providers now provide services based on local languages. If you visit an ATM, you actually have a choice of the language of operation, so that's very, very clear. I would also mention that you have agency banking now, you have mobile banking, you have payment service banks. So the authorities, the regulators have realized that the cost of having physical branch networks, in remote areas is actually challenging for a person who is profit oriented. So when I'm profit oriented, I my price needs to be able to meet my, I need to be able to have a handshake and break even. So a way of doing that is to incorporate mobile money, and you have a lot of that. And so the telcos, there's now the concept of payment service banks, which has been introduced. So you have the telcos, being able to have like a mobile wallet. So your mobile number is almost like a bank account number. So we're going to say, we're at the base. We're at the base level. We are going to see a lot of growth in this sector. I am aware that MTN started the payment service bank sometime last year. They commenced operations, and so there's certainly a lot of room for growth.
You can also call us on the program here in the studio, 0817 313 6193. We're talking about financial inclusion today. Your payment services, perhaps the hitches you're experiencing, the difficulties, your challenges, or maybe if you have derived any benefit from there. You can also call us and share with us this evening. Financial inclusion is what we're talking about, and my guest on the program is Ebuka Emebinah. Ebuka Emebinah is the team lead strategy and governance in Financial Institutions Training Center, FITC. You can also send us messages on WhatsApp. You have questions about that, your struggles with being financially included, challenges you're experiencing. You can also do that here, 0817 313 6193, 0817 313 6193. You can call that number, or you can send us a message on WhatsApp via that same number and ask any question that you may have along this line. So Ebuka, you mentioned earlier how central payment systems how they are actually to financial inclusion. So tell us, what are these payment systems you're talking about, and why are they so important?
Yes, so absolutely, the payment systems, when we talk about that, we're referring to the channels, how you are able to consummate a transaction between a demand and someone who is expecting the cash. So basically, you're relying on networks, for example, and when we talk about networks, it's end to end. Yeah, so you're also relying on, of course, the point of sales terminals, the POSs. Recently, we did launch. Nigeria did launch a scheme to have domestic cards. So that's called AfriGo Pay. And it's really something which is commendable, I must say, because you find out that the use of international cards requires settlement in foreign currency, but with the AfriGo Pay card, we are able to settle domestically using our local currency, and so it takes away. These are ways of taking away the cost, which we talked about the last time. And we said that there's an opportunity because there's a high demand. So the cost is high, meaning that it's more of a supply problem. And how can we take away those supply problems is by trying to reduce the cost. So the launch of the AfriGo Pay card, in my opinion, is a significant step towards lowering the cost of cards, which would, in the long run, also lower the cost of payments. To also put it into perspective, you have so many other countries which have also launched domestic cards, and they've seen significant growth in that. China has domestic cards. India also has domestic cards, and so it's a step in the right direction. And I believe that with such processes in place, it's only a matter of time before we achieve our financial inclusion targets.
While you were talking here, you made mention of certain things. You were talking about traditional banking. You also mentioned digital banking. You talked about agency banking. That's why we were talking about being profit-oriented, what banks could do if they want to do that. Are there differences amongst these systems of banking or these systems of financial inclusion, you might want to explain that to us and the ways that people can benefit from them.
Yeah, so the what is critical in this is the fact that you essentially need a device, a mobile device. So
you'll be talking about internet?
No, not necessarily, I must say. Yeah, so you could have a phone which doesn't have to be a smartphone. For example, to carry out USSD transactions, you don't need a smartphone. You could just do your star something and it works. Yeah, you don't need the internet to do that. Nigeria recently launched the e-Naira, which is a central bank digital currency. So to make payments using such a platform, it can also be enabled, to actually function offline. So you can make transactions, and then whenever you come online, it synchronizes. So a lot of these steps would certainly be taken to minimize the cost, and minimizing the cost also means having less dependency on having data, to be able to carry out these transactions. So it's certainly something which I believe the authorities are looking at, and reducing cost is critical to achieving the milestones.
When you were making your earlier presentation, you were talking about people who patronize informal banking systems, financial systems. You talked about the risks involved there. Just in a minute, can you highlight that?
Yeah, that's it's called shadow banking. It's not unique to our country. You have it almost all over the world. However, the risks are very clear. Like I mentioned earlier, with your funds in the regular banking channels, you have some level of deposit insurance, from the NDIC. In a shadow banking system, you don't have that. Secondly, is the ease of withdrawals. So, for example, if you have funds with an Esusu or a Baba somewhere, and then you travel. Say you travel to some remote part of the country, maybe Benue or Enugu or somewhere, or Kaduna, and then you need to make a withdrawal. You have to travel all the way back to meet the Baba to make your withdrawal. But in a formal banking system, in a formal banking system, you can easily make your withdrawal, across other channels. You have access to online channels. That's digital channels. Or you can actually maybe do a transfer to the party who you want the funds to be accessed to. So those are certainly differences, the forms of access, and safety first. Yeah, the risk of losing your funds through operating with uncensored or unlicensed platforms is really high.
Thank you so much, and this is all we're going to have time for, but the conversation will continue, especially online. So you can go to Instagram or on Twitter. You can reach CFA Society Nigeria on Instagram and Twitter. It is at CFA Society NG on both Instagram and Twitter. Or you can go on LinkedIn and Facebook, as well as the YouTube channel CFA Society Nigeria on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Better still, you can just check out the website www.cfasocietyng.org. You can leave messages there, ask questions, and of course continue the conversation with CFA Society Nigeria. I must say a very big thank you to our guest this evening, who is Ebuka Emebinah. Thank you so much for your time on the program this evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
That's our show today. Join us again next Monday at 4:30 p.m. for another episode of the program right here on 92.3 Inspiration FM. But don't forget www.cfasocietyng.org. That's on the internet. You can get more information from there and even listen to the previous editions of this program as podcasts on that platform. Smart Uzechi is my name. Thank you for listening.